Broadcasting from Watts Creative Studios and live on Grove Street FM. You're listening to Talk Local to Me, brought to you by the Central Virginia Business Coalition.
I am so tired.
We're not allowed to talk about where she's been the last few days. Hi, my name is Mike Norfield. Welcome to Talk Local to Me.
See, listen to this. This is what
We're
happens.
jealous.
You go on vacation, people get jealous, whatever.
Go to Disney, stay at fancy hotels.
I did go to Disney, and I just got back last night, probably around 4:30. So I guess technically yesterday afternoon, about 4:30.
Okay. I thought you meant 4:30 this morning. I'm like, wow.
No. 4:30 yesterday afternoon because we drove. So we do the 12-hour drive. So we left at 2 in the morning. And then by the time we got back, unloaded, dropped off the rental car, all those good things, I was like back at my home about 4:30. And I said hi to my husband and my daughter, and then I went to bed.
Right. You've been driving all day.
So I didn't get much of a...
So I saw Riley's giraffe, and she seems very happy to have a giraffe. So
She does. Yeah, my youngest daughter loves giraffes. We probably have... I can't even tell you, 50 some giraffes roaming our house in different various shapes and forms. And every time I go to Disney, I try and find her something new.
And now you have
with
a new giraffe.
So now we have a new giraffe. And she's super excited because I'm sorry to make y'all even more jealous. We're going back to Disney December 7th through like the 11th.
And with that note, this will be my last time as co-host with the podcast because I can't handle this.
But I am actually making her little dream come true because we're going to stay at Animal Kingdom Lodge.
Very cool.
And we did the Savannah View, which is where you can see the giraffes like walk up to your, rooms and things like that. So, and then I don't know, we'll probably not go to Disney for a little bit. And before, let me just preface this by saying I don't just have all this money that I'm just, running to Disney.
We don't talk about this often, but
we don't.
Heather and Autumn actually have partnered and are part of Minnie Travels Boutique and help organize trips. And we have used Minnie's Travel Boutique when we went into 2021.
Yes.
In October, the CVBC organized a group and we went with Minnie's Travel, organizing the whole thing. It was the easiest trip to Disney I've ever done. Yeah. My family has been to Disney quite a lot because we are originally from England. People would come over. They go all the way to America. What do they want to do? They want to go to Disney. So we've gone quite a bit, and it was the easiest trip we have ever done. Everything was nice and simple.
So our main purpose for this past trip was more, we went down there as an agency. So it was for us as agents to get our content, and it was work related. And the cool thing is that as of today, all 2024 packages have opened up. So you can start booking for 2024. And the coolest thing is that the Disney dining plan is back.
Woody and I
so
are going to take a guy's trip.
January,
let's go. We need the content.
Yeah, so you can get your Disney dining plan now. So that's the reason I went. I'm going back with a family trip in December, but I don't just jump up and go to Disney all the time because I have a plethora of like just money to run to Disney. But that's just what happens. So it was a lot of fun, but I'm back now in reality. But school is out, so I've got my daughter with me, and that's how you saw her giraffe because she's hanging out in the waiting room.
So if you hear a little background noise, mind your business.
Mind your business.
It's fine.
Just, my daughter chatting in the background. So I didn't have no, at 12, it's hard to kind of figure out what to do with her. You don't want to put her in daycare. She's got a few summer camps. She does gymnastics. And so she's at that 3 days a week, but she's off this week. So she's with mama today.
She's got time to be a kid this week and just be a kid, not have to worry about anything.
Yeah,
no responsibilities, anything. Just play with the giraffe and talk nonstop, right?
Yeah. So speaking of responsibilities, we've got a guest today.
But before we talk about this guest, I have a disclaimer.
Okay, hold on.
If you listen to this,
you're ruining my tie-in here.
I am. But if you listen to this podcast and you're like, oh, this is great. Heather and Mike are funny. Woody chimes in every once in a while and makes fun of Heather. It's great. I want you to really listen to this podcast because what we're going to talk about today, our business, Visiting Angels, has done this in Lynchburg. My mom works with another business. She did this and actually used Amanda. And to say that this is life-changing for your business, I just want you to wake up and listen. If you own a business, I want you to listen. If you work for a business and you're worried about your boss burning out and being worried about money all the time, I want you to send this podcast to them. If you have a friend that owns a business, I want you to send this episode to them because what we're going to talk about today could be life-changing for your business. I'm super excited for this topic
I
today.
like the way you just said super.
Super.
Okay. And and the CVBC, we're actually in the process of working through this as well.
Yep.
So, this is not just one of those podcasts or one of those guests that you hear them, you're thinking, oh, they're just peddling something at me.
Yeah,
This is hands down need to know information and very, something that could I'm not going to say make or break your business, but it could definitely be something that's going to help you if you're struggling.
Yeah.
So with that, and now my tie-in of responsibilities is a little less exciting, but
that's all right.
We want you to be responsible business owners, and part of that is looking at your finances and figuring out. A lot of people contact me about how do I get grants, how do I get different things, and we try and put them in the right direction. And right now, I think a lot of small businesses still do not know about what Amanda with Increase Expert is going to be talking about with us today. So, hello, Amanda. Welcome to Talk Local to Me.
Thank you.
So just quickly, let's start off with an overview, though, about Increase Expert.
Sure. So Increase Expert has been around in the community for almost a decade now, and primarily providing bookkeeping and accounting services that grew into outsourced CFO services. But then about a year ago, I had to make some changes because I had to take a year off for medical leave. And so now that I'm back, I'm really excited because now the current focus for Increase Expert it's a little bit different, but primarily still keeping with the outsourced CFO services and really helping people with this employee retention credit. And I'm focused on that because there is a deadline. And so this is something that I really have on the top of my list to make sure people know about, because I think it's important for people to know about it, but also to know that there's a deadline and we need to make sure we get this funding before the deadline.
So the ERC credit, and that's what we're going to be kind of talking about today. What does that stand for?
ERC stands for Employee Retention Credit, or you may have heard it as ERTC, so Employee Retention Tax Credit.
Okay.
Those are interchangeable. And there's another term we should be familiar with, which is the Employer Grant. That is also another name for the ERC. So those three terms are interchangeable. We're all talking about the same thing if we're talking about those.
And so I want to kind of just focus on what you just said. It is a grant.
Correct.
It's not a loan.
Correct.
Which I think is what all people need to really listen.
You do not have to pay this
grant,
back.
Right? Not a loan. So let's start off by talking about that. So what does this grant, what is the grant all about?
Sure. And thank you for clarifying that, because I think that there's a lot of misinformation. It did come out in the CARES Act with PPP, which was a loan, a forgivable loan. So the loan turned into a grant. And of course, EIDL, which was a loan and stayed a loan. So people have heard of those. And ERC, though, is administered as a loan from day one. So unlike PPP that came out as a loan and moved to a grant, this is a grant 100% all day long. When you get it, it is a grant. But what's really nice about it, particularly for our nonprofit folks who are used to getting grants and used to having to report back how the money was spent, or even businesses that got PPP and they had to use it for a certain thing, this grant has no restrictions.
Okay.
So it can be used for any part of your business, and you don't have to then send a report after you've spent it about how it was spent.
Okay. And I not that I say I love that, but as a nonprofit that has to do that for example, we just received the Virginia Tourism grant that we have to utilize for different things. And, it can become tedious to sit down and make sure that you're keeping all of that information that they need and sending it off and making sure you have the right receipts and making sure that, if you put the Virginia for the Virginia for Lovers logo has to be on certain things and you have to make sure all that happens. It's a lot of work. Let's be honest.
Right. You have to earn that grant.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool because, sometimes with grant funding, and of course I have a nonprofit background, I'm a big fan of grant funding, but a lot of times there'll be funding to do a certain program and then you'll be lacking in another area and you can't use the money except for exactly how it was intended. So I love this program because the business owner or the director of the nonprofit, whoever is deciding, can designate the funds to wherever they feel is most important.
Okay.
Like a staff trip to Disney. No, I'm just
Yeah.
You could use it for that.
A podcast trip.
Yeah.
See, that's what we should do, Woody. Woody's Roundup. We should all go down and do like some Woody's Roundup content.
I'll tell you what, I'll book it right now while y'all are
Got you.
Yeah.
We'll just book December 7th through 11th to come down when I'm already down there.
There you go.
And then,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry to get off topic there.
Yeah.
But I love that, as a business owner, we can use the funds for what we need to do to grow our business. And it may not be necessarily, because there's a lot of things. A lot of people think that you have to have a reduction in income, revenue to be able to qualify this. But like we're, by the way, starting next week on the 6th, I'll have been with Visiting Angels for 7 years.
Wow.
So we were still a growing company through COVID, and we actually doubled in size over 2020 when all the stuff with COVID was happening. Like we just had a big boom, and we doubled in size.
Mm-hmm.
So we were scared we weren't going to qualify for PPP or anything like that. Well, we did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we also qualified for the ERC, even though we had an increase in revenue. It was because we grew, but we also had a lot more expense because like the gloves that you see at the doctor's offices, things like that, they went from $10 a box to $40 a box.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a lot of things that tied into this. And because we had, and I hate the word pivot, I promised to myself I wasn't going to say it today, but we had to pivot and kind of do things online. We had to do training online. We had to, I no longer went out and did consults with people to try and start care. It was all like phone and online or, Google Meet, all sorts of things like that. We had to kind of get creative to where our presence in the home was down to just providing care and doing assessments and not just the business kind of meeting part of it. And it made it hard, and it caused there was a lot more financial impact on us from that. And so we qualified, even though we had a good increase in revenue, we still qualified because we had to change the way we did business almost completely, all except for the fact of having someone going in and providing care. Pretty much everything else changed. So it was.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that's probably, with what I do. So I function as an educator for this program. And that's one of the biggest objections. I'll hear people say, thanks for contacting me, but we don't qualify.
Yeah,
right.
we didn't lose money.
Right, exactly. And so I appreciate when people are, just upfront about why they have maybe been told in the past why they didn't qualify.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hit on a couple of the eligibility pieces, because I think that that's really important. And so for anyone who's listening who has been told that they don't qualify, so I imagine there's a group of people who haven't heard about this program. And then there's another group of people who have heard and believe that they don't qualify. So this is for everyone because the eligibility is, of course, the most important piece.
Yeah.
We're excited about this program, but let's make sure people are eligible. So what he just brought up was the gross receipts reduction eligibility. That is how the program originally came out. You could only get this if you had a gross receipts reduction. That's what it was for. I mean, the program was designed to reward employers for keeping people employed.
Right.
That is what this program is. But you had to have that qualifier. But then the government realized later, after the CARES Act, that they've earmarked, $400 billion for this program, and people weren't applying. People weren't getting it because you had to choose between this program and PPP. So that's another common misconception is if I got PPP, I can't apply for this program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the government realizing people are not applying, we're not giving this money away. In fact, the IRS just put on their website now, it says we're urging small businesses to apply.
Right.
When the IRS is urging you to apply, that's how much they need to give this money away. So new legislation rolled out that said, even if you got PPP, you can still apply. Even if you didn't have a gross receipts reduction, you can still apply. The new guidelines say that in order to qualify, you have to have what the IRS is calling a nominal change in operations.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a definition of that nominal. And I wrote it down here, so I make sure I am very clear about it. The shutdown order must have suspended at least 10% of your revenue producing operations.
Right. And that's where we fall into the biggest part of the category, because we couldn't have a lot of our events that we held that we brought in money for normally.
And to give you credit, you did like virtual coffee talks and things like that, which I didn't even think was going to be possible. You had a whole program where we were able to meet with different people individually at the coffee talk. So it was just like we kind of talked to people and did a great job at that. But it was hard to come up with that.
Our biggest thing was Centerfest, because it's normally the big 6-block street festival. Well, for us, we had to shut it down, and we still held it, but we had to hold it in Liberty Lake Park where we normally can have 120 booths and we were only allowed to have maybe 30.
Right.
So that was a huge.
And didn't you have to count how many people went in and keep it to a certain amount?
We did. So, that was where we kind of fell into, while our receipts may not have been, because we actually were doing great with memberships because people needed support.
Right.
We lost it in the events revenue piece of it. So.
Yeah.
And that's so important because when I speak to people, I always start the conversation saying, how did COVID impact your business? Just tell me the story.
Mm-hmm.
And usually within 2 or 3 sentences, I can identify that 10% impact.
Right.
And again, it's not a 10% reduction in revenue.
Right.
It is a 10% impact on your operations.
Mm-hmm.
That's our starting point. And telling the story and building the story from there is really what is making now, it's more like 80% of small business is qualifying now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So huge shift from when it first came out. We weren't even talking about it. Remember in the PPP days, like that's all we heard in the media,
Yep.
PPP, everybody's
Right.
getting PPP. Have you gotten yours? Yeah, I got mine. And it was this big frenzy before the money runs out. And no one was talking about ERC back then.
Yep.
Because nobody really qualified. The rules were so strict that nobody could get it anyway. So now revisiting the conversation and retroactively applying for 2020 and 2021 is what we're talking about.
So with that, this is one of the things that I think we wanted to talk about was how this is supposed to be in place too to help employers keep their employees
Right.
on board. Especially, I feel like a lot of people, 2020 was hard. 2021, we felt a little bit of it, but I see more people struggling now, 2022, 2023, than they actually were in 2020. I mean, 2020, of course, people were scared. They were worried. They were nervous. But we're really seeing that impact now, which is why it's so important to go back and get this ERC credit.
I was talking to somebody yesterday and was telling them, they were calling trying to sell me something over the phone. And I was like, it's really funny because like during COVID, things were tough, but business wasn't hard because it was just like we had to do all these different things and it actually kind of made it easier. And so we managed to grow a lot and things like that. And it didn't seem like it was stressful, but it wasn't hard. Now it's not as stressful, but it's hard to get people to come in and interview and apply and work and things like that. And it's hard to get clients to be able to accept help in the home because now you can go into facilities and tour a little easier, things like that. So it's almost like it's tougher now than it was during COVID. And to me, that makes no sense. It's like we should be able to breathe a sigh of relief and be able to keep going. So we actually, so to tell you how the ERC should not go, because I started the process in October of 2021 in Disney. I was on vacation, completely unplugged from work. I have a friend in Colorado that worked with 3 visiting angels there, and she texted me and she goes, "Have you heard about this ERC?" And I'm like, "What's that?" And she told me, and she goes, "Well, we just did ours. And because they're an anonymous company way out in the thing, I'm going to tell you what they got. They were a huge company, okay? They got back $2.2 million, right? Huge 3 office visiting angels, $2.2 million. She had my attention, okay? She said, "We just found out we're getting $2.2 million back. This is how we did it," all that stuff. And I'm like, "Email me the paperwork, the contact of the company. I'm gonna start that as soon as I got back." When I got back from Disney, it was like the first thing that I looked into, right? And we got our first dose of ERC money at the end of 2022. So it took about 6 to 8 months to kind of get that whole process going in place. So it's not a quick overnight process.
Right.
However, the IRS is wonderful and they applied ours wrong. This is not the person who did it or anything like that. It was just the IRS. They applied it to the wrong year and said, "Oh, this isn't right." And then it took forever to get that fixed. And we just got another dose of ERC money like 3 weeks ago. So it's not something that's going to be overnight or something like that. So don't expect that you're going to go into this and like, oh yeah, like next month, it's going to be so much easier. It does take a while to get the paperwork done and in, but when I tell you it is worth it, this is life-changing for us. When we got our ERC money back, it just about equaled our first 2 years of revenue when we opened. So first full 2 years of revenue. I just want you to hear that and understand how life-changing this could be. And we were a small company then, but still, even if you, I know somebody that actually used Amanda that I recommended to her because they were like, "Have you heard about this ERC thing? I got this email from this lady." And I was like, "Well, I don't know who that is." She goes, "What?" She was in the CVABC newsletter. I was like, "Oh yeah, call her, do it." And they got enough where they could pay basically almost an employee and a half for a full year. So think about that. If you had a free employee for a year, what could you do?
Yeah.
Just saying. So, I mean, and that's a very small company. They just had the 5 or 6 people. So it wasn't a big amount, but it was enough to where this is going to make a big impact for this business because they basically got an employee and a half free for a year and can continue to operate. I just forgot how to talk about it.
And those are the stories that I get, right? That's why this is so much fun. Because I get to I meet new people. I get to tell them about something maybe they didn't know about. And then it's exciting. And then I get the phone calls about this is how much we're going to get. And then I get the story of what they're going to be able to do. And that makes my job so much fun. Yeah. So I wrote down a couple of examples because that made me think of it. One nonprofit, so they received $120,000, 6 employees.
Woohoo.
So $120,000 when you have 6 employees, that essentially is two and a half of their employees for a whole year. Local construction company, $440,000. But, it's all relative, right? To the size of the business. It's impacting for every business because it's relative to their size, right? So a small nonprofit versus a larger construction company, but it's all relative. It's all impacting. A small seasonal restaurant. So think of like restaurants like Smith Mountain Lake area and things that are seasonal.
Yeah.
So if they lose a whole season because people aren't visiting.
Drifters might have to cancel that Sunday all you can eat shrimp or whatever it is.
It's a big deal. $75,000 for a small seasonal restaurant. $75,000 for a small seasonal restaurant is huge.
Right? Yeah.
And then another one I wrote down, $220,000 for a landscaping company. These are all different. I mean, the fields vary greatly as far as who can qualify, and the amounts vary greatly. You were talking about millions, and some people do. I've seen 6, 7 million.
But that's an extreme case.
Yes.
If you own a small business that just has 6 employees, please don't expect million.
Yes. Don't call back and say, now Amanda said that. No, we're going to blame you because you brought up the
Yeah, well, I'm telling
your fault, not mine.
I'm telling you, when she said 2.2 million, I was like, okay, we're a lot smaller. We're not going to get anywhere near that. And it wasn't anywhere near that relatively, but it was still life-changing for our company.
Right.
We're now looking at meeting goals. I'm going to lean into the mic because the train's coming. We're now looking at like being able to move our office to a bigger space. We're looking at, being able to, we've got a wrap car that I'm sure you've seen through parades and things like that. It's 10 years old. It's a hybrid. Like we're looking at maybe it's time to change that out, things like that. So we are looking to do things to improve our business and expand and do more marketing and things like that and grow our business with this, which, what's great about this is we don't have to pay it back. We don't have to report what we spend it on. We can do whatever our business needs are now because what our needs are now are not what they were when we applied for this.
Right.
When we applied for this, it was like, oh gosh, like we just if we have to keep going like this, it's going to be hard. And it was, but guess what? We made it through that. By the time we got our ERC money, our needs were completely different. So now we're looking at, instead of survival, we're looking at growth. So, and it takes money to grow.
Yeah.
So.
I know for us, and I'm not sure what at this point, we haven't finished the process. So I'm not really sure what we'll be getting back. And
6.9 million.
We were, right. That'd be great.
If you get that back,
but
all the CVABC's going to Disney.
Going back to 2020, because you have to look at who you had employed back in 2020, how many employees you had. There were 3 of us in 2020. Technically, one of them was a contracted employee, so she does not count. So really there were 2 of us. And then I think Autumn came in part-time at the end of 2020. So,
but then you've got all of 2021 with her.
Correct. So then there was, so basically there was about 2.5, 3 of us during that time period. But I got to thinking, when I was talking, to the person that we're working with, and I said, even if we get something as small as 25,000, let's say, for me, that's potentially a part-time staff member I can bring on to help me with administrative things or membership.
That's a guy's weekend for Woody and Mike.
Yes.
Just saying. But there's a lot of opportunity with that. You get a trailer and for events and things like that.
Right.
Like there's a lot of different things that you could do.
Yeah. I mean, I really know at this point, we really need to grow our staff by 1 at least is my hope and my goal in the next year, even if it's just someone part-time to kind of help with paperwork stuff and things that, necessarily I have on my desk piled up while I'm doing all the other things that need to happen. So, when you're looking at this, look at all the ways it can help benefit you now. Like Mike was saying, it doesn't have to be what you were doing back in 2020.
Right.
And I, for me, I'm just like, however little we get or, is going to be really appreciate it
I mean,
because it's more than what I'm always a less is more. You don't got it now. So,
And the way to look at it is this is free money. Now there is a fee that you pay. Now I will tell you, when Visiting Angels of Lynchburg did theirs, this was brand new. It was right out the box. Visiting Angels heavily pushed us towards this one company who charged us 16% up front. That was hard to do. We had to get a loan to get the process started. Now that it's all over with, totally worth it. But the thing I like about Amanda's program is there is no payment. They take it out of the money that you get. So really there's no risk to go through the process or anything like that because they're taking the fee off the back end when they have the money in hand. So they're charging an accurate amount, and because it's a percentage, am I right?
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So they're charging an accurate amount, and you only pay for what you get. So, if it comes back and it's $5,000 less than you thought you were going to get, you didn't pay the percentage on that as well.
Exactly.
And it's I wish that I had known more about this when we did ours, because we would have totally done that, because it would have made it a lot easier for us through the process. But totally worth the process. I will mention though that and I'm learning this because we've gone through this process, that once you get that money back, you do have to go back to 2020 and 2021. You do have to refile and amend your taxes. So there is a little bit of extra cost that's going to come out of that, a little bit of pain. Your CPA is going to hate you a little, but that's okay, because like I said, if you're spending some of your free money on that, it's free money. So, you're still coming out ahead, and it can make a huge difference in a business.
So I know we've been talking about small businesses need to do this, but so can we talk a little bit about exactly who? Let's really boil it down to
the butcher, the baker,
how
the
many exactly.
So true. All of those people and a couple more.
Yes.
So the people who are good fits, 5 to 500 employees is a really good fit for working with me on this. And then the people who were hit hardest during COVID. Now, I don't decide who was hit the hardest, right? Because we were all hit in different ways. But examples, when you think about people who struggled because of government orders, okay? If you look at through that scope, who had to limit their operations the most due to government orders? So if we start there, that's restaurants, that's bars, because of social distancing.
And different venues, things like that.
Yes. All wedding venues and event venues.
Right.
Anything that is social distancing prevented them from doing what they normally do. Huge opportunity there. Doctor's offices, interestingly enough, they can qualify because of having to do things like your dentist and things like that. I mean, I remember I had a tooth problem and my dentist was like, we're not even open,
Right.
So, you think, it was a medical thing. COVID was a medical thing, but not all doctors were addressing COVID.
Right.
So a lot of them, chiropractors and dentists and all these different ones had to close or do things differently.
Yeah.
Retail, a lot of retail was impacted because of social distancing. Yes. Private schools, interestingly enough, will qualify. And then think of all of the programs that relate to schools.
Yeah.
So government, so public schools don't qualify because
they're government funded.
Yeah, because they're government funded. But private schools, and then after school programs,
daycares
and tutoring and testing centers and all of these places that their work relates to schools. I mean, and it's broad. It's the people who, work on the band instruments and the athletics, and think of everyone whose business relates to schools. They couldn't do what they normally do. So that's a great opportunity. Manufacturers, a lot of manufacturers struggled. And there's a lot of manufacturing in this area. Interestingly enough, churches often don't qualify for things that most, businesses or NPOs can get. But churches are a great fit for this program because, of course, they had to be closed or they had to change how they
did.
met.
My parents' church did outside church, and the preacher was on the back of a pickup truck with speakers.
And,
all that. So it changed drastically.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then community outreach, right? So, you were talking about what you all do, and food banks and people who couldn't go out in the community the way that they normally would.
Right.
So this is really, really broad. I mean, that's not an exhaustive list, but those are good fits. I mean, I've seen country clubs. Who would have thought, right?
Yeah.
But the country club wasn't doing what the country club normally does. And I mentioned construction, landscaping. A lot of jobs didn't move forward. So the construction industry, although continued to boom, commercial construction really changed.
Yeah.
So there's so many people who are a really good fit. So the question I always have people ask is, what was the impact of COVID? And if you can tell that story, then we should have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's, if you had an impact, let's talk about what the impact was and see if it's a good fit.
Let me ask this only because I know I have a lot of members that fall into this category. What about, I'm going to assume that those that are artisan type that have their own business, do they qualify for something like this? Even though I know it's kind of iffy because do they have like that tax ID and stuff like that?
So
or
if they have,
how does that work?
I'm going to speak on
Okay,
this.
go for it.
This is my opinion. This is not
I
actual.
didn't know you were so well versed in the ERC.
Let me tell you. So if they have an LLC or a business set up and they have paid taxes as a corporate entity, whether it's an S corporation, a C corporation, an LLC, anything like that, you look at me like I didn't know you actually knew this stuff. It's cracking me up. So if you've done that and you've been paying taxes and you've been paying taxes as a business, then you should be able to qualify for something as long as you have been paying yourself out of that corporation.
Correct. As long as there's payroll taxes.
As long as there's payroll taxes, because payroll taxes is not, correct me if I'm wrong, but what we're actually getting back is this grant is money that we've paid into payroll taxes for employees, like that 7.2% that goes into, they used to call it FICA, but it's the Social Security, Medicare, all that stuff.
He does know.
I was about to say, you should just hire him. What is he? What's
I'm
happening
telling you,
around here?
I am passionate about this subject.
Oh, I love it. I'm like getting happier.
Mike
by
on the
minute.
Traveling Road Show. We
I
have to
am.
go around and
I am.
He's spot
talk
on.
about it.
My favorite part
Spot
about doing all
on.
this is I had to make a giant spreadsheet. Like, it made me so happy.
So this is why Mike and I are great as co-hosts because like we're so different. Like I'm
Right.
over here like, what's a spreadsheet? Like
And
I
he's
don't
like,
use those
"Oh, I made
things.
this
Like
spreadsheet and it was amazing."
spreadsheets make me like I start
That
getting like
Excel.
I drive my wife crazy because I'll make spreadsheets for
Yeah.
like our monthly budget or whatever, and I'm like, look, and like you put your what this bill is here, and it subtracts it, and here's your total, and here's what we have left, and she's
Oh,
like,
formula.
how'd you do that?
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Well,
like, it's fantastic.
That's like Autumn with events. She color codes everything. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, here's the color code for this vendor type and this vendor type. And I'm looking at it like, you know what? Just email them all and do something. Like, I'm
Yeah.
whatever. Are they
So-
in there or not?
But he was right. If you
But-
pay FICA tax.
So if you pay FICA tax,
Yeah.
that's the refund you're getting,
Yeah.
and so you can get up to $26,000 per employee.
Yeah.
So Visiting Angels, we had quite a few employees during that because we had we have some turnover, things like that. It's pretty low as far as our industry is concerned, but we still had some turnover. So we had some people that maybe came and they worked for us for like a month, and they were like, this really isn't for me. And I'm like, hey, no hard feelings, go somewhere else. So we still got to count that payroll tax.
Right.
So
Right.
it made quite a difference for us because we pay an exorbitant amount of payroll tax.
Does it depend on how many months they worked with you? Because here's my question.
So it's
Does
it's based on like dollar amount that they made that comes out. So
Okay.
up to 26,000. So we had employees that worked with us for like a month or two, and because we paid into the payroll tax and things like that, that's what we got back.
Okay, because I was just thinking we've had 2 employees that I know of in that time period
Yeah.
that didn't work out.
Because the amount of data that you're
But-
going to have to pull for that is, if you don't have like a payroll software or something, or in QuickBooks or something, it can be a challenge. So.
Okay. I was just wondering.
And-
Good to know.
Yeah.
We
And
were-
let's talk about the amounts because it is up to 26,000. I'll tell you the national average is 10,000 per employee.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what brings that down. Now, locally, I've seen the number be quite a bit higher than the 10,000, but nationally, small business, we're looking at 10,000 per employee. What brings the number down is if you got PPP and whether you got 1 or 2 PPPs. Again, it doesn't mean you can't apply for ERC. Again, big misconception, right? You can
Right.
do both.
Mhm.
It's just going to lower the amount of ERC that you get because you can't double dip, right?
Right.
They gave you money for payroll from PPP. You can't get it again for
And
ERC.
not to out nerd you here, but for PPP, you also had to say what percentage of that you were using to pay rent, utilities, and things like that, which
Exactly.
you were doing for payroll.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, do all of our rent and stuff like that, but just throw the employee's payroll on it because that takes care of it. Like, it's fine. Well, if I had known that the ERC was going to come out, I'd be
Right.
like, do all the rent, all the utilities,
Exactly. We
Mhm.
all
and do
would
the
have done
minimum
that.
for
Yes.
this. And and I've done the math. It really didn't do a big difference for us
Good.
in the long run.
Good.
Because we did count it as rent, and we did
Right.
kind of evenly distribute it out like we felt like we should, not just all that. So,
Mhm.
but we threw everything we could at that to use that up. So, it didn't really affect us too much because we got a PP loan as well. But this, I would, if I could do this again, not again, but if I could go back and do it again, the only thing I would change is I would go with somebody who took the money at the back end instead of the front. And I would have done it 2 months earlier. So just because I didn't know about it and things like that. And, just because you're hearing that and you're thinking, gosh, that was October of 2021. It's going to take forever if I do it now. Doesn't matter. Do it now. it's definitely worth looking into. The money is still there. And, you pay a lot of money in payroll taxes. And especially if you have over about 15 employees, it starts to really add up. And you go from having to file quarterly to having to file every 2 weeks and things like that. It's a whole mess. So it can really add up and it can really make a difference on your business. I mean, just think about it. If you're sitting there right now and you own a business and you're thinking about this, I want you to think about what you would do if somebody came to do $20,000 right now. What would you do today to change your business? Well, if you go through this program and you get more than $20,000, what would you do? But I want you to think about that first $20,000. What would you do? Because what we did is, just worked on making sure everything was, like it should be and flowing like it should. Like we had all the supplies we needed, all that stuff. We just made sure that we were comfortable and safe and equipped for the next 3 months. Like in supplies, I'm talking like pens, paper, stuff like that, because you get to the point where like waiting for that money and you're kind of like, okay, well, business isn't picking up like it should, something like that. We're a little worried. And you start looking at like, do I really need to order another case of paper yet? Or can I make do on this half a ream I have left for another week? Or do I just go buy one ream? Or, that's decisions that business owners have to make on a daily basis. They have to balance, I want to go buy a brand new car and just drive around because the business needs to look good versus I'm out of pens. Let me go buy some with my own money. Businesses really do face things like that, that come up. So, if you're sitting there and you're like, I don't think I've really changed anything. If I had $20,000, I just keep everything the same. Then you need to look at your business and you need to work on it some more. That's my speech for the day.
So with this, this goes back. So it looks at employees for 2020 and 2021, correct? Okay. And that's it. Not 2022, it goes just until 2021.
First 3 quarters.
First 3 quarters of 21.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so when we're thinking about dollar amounts, thinking about how many people that, you had, and sometimes people will sort of painstakingly calculate that and pull all their records and pull their PPP and such before they talk to me. I tell them, let's chat first. Don't stress about what data you need to get together. Get a rough idea of how many employees you had. I have some people be like, oh, we had 15 or 20. Okay, we're over 5 and less than 500. So let's talk,
Right.
So don't stress about all the information, you need to gather. Whatever. Let's chat. Let's talk a little bit about eligibility. And then the next step is to actually do a qualifying call. So actual determining eligibility. And what I love, again, about this no payment due upfront concept is you can determine your eligibility with 100% certainty that it passes all IRS guidelines. Then you can turn in your 941s and your PPP forgiveness, because that's what's going to be needed to do the calculation. You can find out exactly how much you're going to qualify for. Then decide if you want to move forward with the company. And that's the amazing part. I'm telling you, people will be like, well, we're just really busy right now. I'll do it in like 2 months. And I'm like, get the ball rolling, determine. And once people find out how much they qualify for, one, I've never had anybody not move forward because why would you not? And 2, they're always like, I wish I had done this sooner. I wish I hadn't waited.
When I found out how much we were getting back, I literally went and ran around on my building like 3 times because I was just so excited. Like, this can't be true.
I wish I had been there for that.
Yeah.
Like, so badly.
Yeah. So now, after you do all the paperwork to get your amount and everything else like that, you have to file the 941X. Do you guys help with that as well?
Correct. Yes. So the company I partner with, they not only take care of the filing, but they are one of the only companies in the country that does this, that they have a direct contact with the IRS.
Whoa.
So if there's a problem, like they got a guy. Okay. So they take care of that. If there's an audit, if there's a concern, out of 30,000 plus applications that they've done, there's been one audit and it passed with flying colors, because when you know what you're doing with this program, there's a lot of companies popping up out of nowhere, spamming people. And
I get an email a day.
Yeah. And that's the norm. And so I vetted as an accountant myself, and most accountants outsource this work. I vetted multiple companies and then I chose to partner with a company. So I have an actual partnership with them. And they have this relationship with the IRS, and they take care of sending the filing. And then if the IRS has questions, they are there for audit support, and that's included in that fee, the fee that they don't charge until you collect your money.
Right.
So I tell everybody, let's chat with me. Let's talk about your situation and what may qualify you. And then let's get that eligibility call knocked out all the way up to the point that you find out how much you're going to receive. You can utilize them to run calculations for for you.
So
And I
you
tell
can
people, do it.
So you can get all the way up to the point of where you know how much you're going to get back, and they go
Right.
like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want the free money.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't want to really
I
grow
would
my
prefer
business.
to let
I just
you
want to
just
sit
keep
here
it.
and struggle.
Yeah.
So I love that. So I would say no is always free. So
right.
like they can go through the entire process, and if
Right.
they're like, I just don't know if this sounds real. First of all, it is.
right.
But second, I don't know if it sounds real. Like they still have time
Yeah.
to decide. They're not
Right.
committed and locked in. So
Correct.
if your phone doesn't blow up over the next week, I'm very disappointed in all of our listeners because, if you don't run a business, but you know someone who does, tell them about this. Send them this podcast.
Now, you mentioned a deadline. What is that looking like?
The deadline for 2020, which this is important for Virginians because Virginia, our government guidelines, it's different state to state, and ours were a little bit more lax. Surprisingly, didn't feel
Mhm.
like it, but we're a little more lax than some other states. And government guidelines is a consideration. What did the government say you had to do as far as being closed or being
Mhm.
limited? And so 2020 is a big year to collect funding for Virginians, and that deadline is in April. So
April.
this coming April. So in
I was going
10
to say,
months.
because
yeah.
I missed it.
2024.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, well, I'm
yeah.
out.
So we have 10 months left, which is a lot of time.
Okay.
But we want to make sure that people
also-
are getting the ball rolling. And I imagine there's going to be a big rush
Right.
close to that deadline.
That's what I was going to say.
Right now, it's taking the IRS 3 to 5 months to send out these checks, more on the 5-month side of
Right.
it, right? So
When I did it, it was 9 months. So go
Wow.
now while
Yes.
supplies last.
because closer to that April deadline, I imagine that
It's
3
gonna
to 5 months is probably going to head back toward the
Mhm.
9
Yeah.
months.
Right. Because everyone's going to be trying to get in there
Yeah.
quickly. Yeah.
And retailers and people, restaurants often have a dip January, February. Do it now, and then the funding will come in
Ooh,
your
good point.
January, February
Mhm,
dip, where it's always hard
So-
for certain
Or those
businesses.
seasonal businesses.
So
Lake
don't say, I'm too busy to do this now.
Right.
You still have to do business and things like that. Have a conversation with
Yeah.
Amanda and start the process.
Well, and I think too, if you're sitting here saying you're too busy, listen to what Amanda has been telling you is
you can
that
hire another person.
Amanda can help you get what you need, and then the business she works with continues to work there too. So really, you're just working on that first part with Amanda on how to get all those things together, get her the paperwork you need, and then they help you with the rest of it. So, what is your time worth? Like, let's think about that real quick. What is your time worth? Because if you have to take a little bit out of your day or your week or your month to get all that paperwork together to give to Amanda to have her work on it, look at what you're going to be getting back. And, like Mike said, do it now and get it done. And especially too, I love the point you made about if you have a slow season in that off season, or like I was saying with the lake and
Plan
things
now.
like that. Yeah,
Plan
do it
now.
now. Yeah, the train agrees.
Yeah.
See, the
Yeah.
train is coming.
So-
It
Cheering
said,
for
do
us.
it now.
And I had someone tell me that runs a small business. They said, you've either got to do the work yourself or you've got to pay someone to take your place. If you could get the CRC money and you could have somebody, it's the train. I'm just gonna wait. And that's all I have to say about that. No, I'm just kidding. It's like the Forrest Gump speech. But if you have things that are on your plate that like you just can't get everything done in a day, and you could hire somebody that could do part of your job and kind of help take that load off of you and do some of those other things. My wife worked for me for 2 months and completely ruined my life. We worked well together. It was fantastic. But when she left, I couldn't take back what she was doing in my office helping me, and I had to hire someone. And then go a little farther down the road, and I had somebody else take some more stuff off my plate, and then they were getting ready to leave, and I was like, oh no. So now we have 5 in our office. It's not just a two or 3 man operation anymore. It's 5 of us in there. So, and we are looking to hire another one sometime down the road. So, which is one of the reasons we're moving our office, because we're in that space. So it takes the load off me so much. So if you could hire somebody that could help you do part of your business, even if it's a simple part of your business that for some reason you're still doing, if you own the business and you're taking the trash out every night, like think about that. Come on. So, there are different things that you can do to make your job easier. And the ERC is just a great way to do it without having to take a lot of risk and put yourself out there for that.
And we're talking, and thank you all, because I feel like you have like tapped my phone, because you are saying the exact things I hear from business owners about, okay, yeah, I do want to move forward, but I'll do my next call like in a couple of months because I'm really busy.
Do it now.
Yeah. And I feel like when I say like, well, let's just schedule it. Like, I'm not a salesperson. I couldn't sell stuff if it were free. Like,
Right.
I just want to educate people and help people. That's just who I am as a person. And so when I hear that, and I'm like, no, you really want to do this. What you all just said is why I feel like people, that's what they need to hear when they're having that.
Yeah.
I can't do this right now, like, because we're too busy. It's about to be summer. We're too busy. We're talking about a less than 2-hour investment.
Right.
Right.
15 to 20 minutes on the phone with me, 15 minutes for your eligibility call, and then the rest of the time gathering your 941s, which your payroll person should have.
So this isn't a 2-hour block. This is 2 hours
Right.
over like a week.
Over the whole, like for the whole
For
thing.
the whole thing.
And then someone is going to be assigned to you who's going to take care of all of your paperwork, send it to the IRS. So when we're talking about 6 months, it's 5 months of that is the IRS doing their
Right.
right.
Right. Absolutely.
This is such a small time investment compared to when I'm seeing people get 300 and 400 and $500,000 and for 2 hours of a
Right.
decision maker's
So
time.
let's take my example that was very small and under average of 20. What would you do with $20,000? So if this took you 2 hours of work, you made $10,000 an hour. I will take that pay rate starting right now.
Right.
I've been here for 56 minutes.
That's great. Well, you better talk to Woody about that. I pay Woody.
But I mean,
Yeah.
really, $10,000 an hour.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't take that?
Yeah.
And if you get more than that, like,
Yeah.
ooh, I got to figure out what I made an hour for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so I mean, like, it's when I say it's life changing, it was life changing for our business. It took so much stress off of me and allowed us to be able to not just go, how are we going to make it through this year, but all right, how are we going to grow next year? What's our plan? Because you can say, I want to grow, but if you don't have a plan for that growth, all you're doing is throwing spitballs at the
You're
wall.
just standing still.
So you've got to start. I heard that at the Lead On Summit, by the way, at the CVABC, and it changed my life. I'm not joking. Everything changed my life today. It's my word of the day, apparently. But like it really has allowed us to really plan for the future and look for another office space, which we found and things like that. So, you know, it's things are happening. It's not just this is what I want to do to grow, but we are able to get out there and do it. So,
So
I'm
let's
excited.
talk about how do they get a hold of you? How do they get the ball rolling?
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Couple ways. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So that's a great way. Send me a message and say, hey, I heard you talking about this ERC thing. Let's chat. And we could set up a time. That's a great way. I try to schedule those because I know people are busy. That's a great way. Also, I'm doing a lunch and learn in September. But if you don't want to wait until September, reach out to me on LinkedIn or
beat the rush.
Yeah, right. Exactly. My website is increase.expert. So it's a .expert rather than a .com. So increase, like the amount of money is going to increase when you get your ERC. And expert, as in you're going to work with some experts to get this done for you. We don't just work with anybody on ERC. So increase.expert. And then you'll see an ERC page that's going to give you a good overview of the program. And you can reach out to me through the website as well. Either way, I'll meet with you one-on-one. We can do a phone call. We can do Zoom. I'll come to your business and we'll chat about it. We'll just have a quick conversation. Literally takes me, usually a couple of sentences. I can tell if people qualify, but in less than 30 minutes, we can knock that out. And then I can get you set up with an advisor. And then the ball just rolls from there. So less than 2 hours total of your time. It's easier to apply for than PPP.
Yeah. Yes.
Easier than PPP. And often people get more money than PPP. So if you did PPP, come talk to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today and talking with us about it. Like Mike and I have said, it's an amazing opportunity for small businesses, and you really should, check it out as soon as possible.
For sure. And if you wanted to check out the CVABC, you can go to cvabc.org and find out all sorts of information about membership, sponsorship, and events coming up.
Yes, and coming up next week is the Peaks Art and Wine Festival, June 10th at the Peaks Retreat and Adventure Center. You're going to want to get your tickets. You can go to Facebook and check out the Peaks Art and Wine Festival and get your tickets through Eventbrite.